I am Vinnie Tortorich, folks. Your good intentions have been stolen, but don't worry. I'm here to help you get them back. You may be soft and succulent at the beginning of this process, but hang in there. Before long, you will be lean and mean. Like my guest today, folks, you really want to hang in there today because this guy is going to bring the goods. He wrote a book called The Unholy Trinity, and we're going to find out what that means. We have on the show Daniel Trevor. Yeah. Yeah, he's not waving goodbye, folks. He's saying hello. You're going to love this guy. I got to know him a little bit off the air just a few minutes ago. He's written an incredible book. I can't wait to talk to him about this book because he's got knowledge. Like he's been to hell and back. Daniel almost waved goodbye. He had a heart attack and he figured it out. And we're going to find out a lot more about this guy. He wrote a book called The Unholy Trinity. I'm talking about none other than Daniel Trevor. Yeah. Daniel, it's said that everything I do reminds me of a song. And of course, your name, and as I like to say, Elton John before he was gay, or before he let us know he was gay. And yeah, there you have it. We should have known by the outfits, right, Daniel?
Absolutely. No doubt about it, as they say. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me, Vinny. I really appreciate it. I've had several Vinnies in my life when I was growing up in the hood back. I'm just a lower class street kid from Philly, and I shouldn't know anything about any of this information I now researched and studied. But fortunately, early on, I was able to learn how to study well, and I could conquer anything that I wanted to conquer student-wise. I mean, I wasn't like a straight grade A student or anything, but if I was interested in something, I could conquer it. Anything you wanted, anything you put for me, or anything that I was interested in, basically. And, you know, what happened to me is a few years ago, I almost died of a heart attack. And I thought it was just totally shocking to me. And so I decided, having studied technical data throughout my life, I decided to take a dive into the medical and nutrition science to find out, how the hell could this happen to me? I'm Mr. Healthy, right? And what I discovered absolutely blew my mind, shocked and infuriated me, actually, because what we've been told to eat for decades is killing us. And that's why...
Right. Before we get into that, let me go back just a little bit. You know, guy, I'm going to tell you the way I call him, the way I see him on this podcast. So whenever someone writes to me, and you came highly recommended by one of my favorite cardiologists, Philip Ovadia, he writes to me because you got to have this guy on. And I'm like, all right, who's this guy? Here's another guy with a book, right? I mean, why this guy? And then, you know, whenever I see citizen scientists, I always go, oh boy, but there's a but. They're not all the same. From what you just said, you remind me of Ivor Cummins. You remind me of Dave Feldman. These people they were not trained scientists. They came from they knew how to look at data because of what they do. Well, Ivor Cummins was a scientist in a different realm.
Yes.
But both of these guys knew how to look at data. You're a guy, Daniel, like those guys that know how to look at data. Yes. So I'm saying to all you other citizen scientists that write to me every day to have you on the show, you have to pass a pretty high test before I will allow or even talk to a guy like Daniel, right? So you're of that ilk. You went down the rabbit hole after your heart attack. So take me back to that day. Feeling bad that day? Feeling good? What happened?
Well, what happened was I started feeling these symptoms, and in my throat, like something kind of sort of what you might feel at the start of a cold or a flu, that kind of thing. And then these weird cold sweats started happening. So I rushed over to Dr. Google to find out if there was anything about that. And it said something about heart attack. And I thought, well, you know, and they said time is of the essence, because check this out. They call it the golden hour. over 50% of the people who die from a deadly first heart attack, their very first symptom of heart disease is their own death. I mean, there's no symptoms with any of these diseases, these silent diseases. By the time you have symptoms, you're way down the line and it's a long road back, or it's just too late. So I happened to be at that time right across the street from one of the top heart hospitals in the country, because my daughters had just gone off to college, and I grabbed a top floor unit on this brand new high rise, and there was never any screaming ambulances because this was not, they didn't have a trauma unit. This was just for heart patients, right? So I went over there and I stumbled and I said, look, I'm not sure, but I might be having a heart attack. I don't know. Come with me. They quickly drew some blood to see if it had this protein called troponin at higher than normal levels, and along with the 12-point EKG and that kind of thing. And within, pretty quickly, they came back and told me I was having a myocardial infarction, which is the medical term, of course, for a heart attack. And then I quickly let my daughters know by text, and they were at my side pretty soon. So that's what happened to me. And I thought, because I had always made it to the gym, and I'd always stay slender. But my diet was wrong. Not that I was eating Twinkies or anything like that, but I was one of these 1% of the population that could be on the slim side, but still be metabolically very unhealthy. It's kind of like
Right.
Dr. Peter Attia. I was just like him. He was slim and, triathlons and him and that kind of thing.
At some point, Peter did gain weight. I think that Peter has always had a propensity to gain weight, and he was always confused by that too. Right? Now, Peter never got morbidly obese. Right? But he would look around and go, wait, I don't want to take away from your story, but Peter would always, I'm doing everything they taught me in medical school. And Peter's not the average doctor. He researches, he does everything else. He goes, and all I do is gain weight. And my friend Tim Noakes, same way. He was like, I run more and more every year. And he's a guy that's in the lab doing more studies on athletes and food and everything else than anyone else. And he's looking around going, wait, I cannot outrun my diet anymore. But go on. You're that lean guy, right?
Yeah, no, it was just
so how did it happen to you?
Well, what happened was, what I was missing was the proper test.
Give me your age when you had the heart attack, by the way, Daniel.
I just turned 76, but I feel like I'm getting younger because I got more energy. The more I got into the keto and then ketovore and then carnivore and, that kind of thing. I just, my skin keeps getting younger, less wrinkles and that kind of thing. And I have the energy.
What was your age on the heart attack?
I was about 72, so it was about 4 years ago. And so doing all the testing, that's what was missing because, the doctors, they don't know the right tests. That's why I reached out to Dr. Ford Brewer to ask him. He's this brilliant, a genius doctor, internationally acclaimed preventive medicine doctor out of Johns Hopkins, who's taught thousands of doctors over the years. And I asked him, could you write a chapter in my book delineating what are the most important blood labs and scans that anyone can get without needing your doctor's prescription? Because sometimes what you'll do is you'll tell your doctor, hey, I want this one or I want that one. And they'll go, oh, you don't need that. You're fine. You don't need that. And the only reason they're telling you that is because they don't know what it is. They wouldn't know how to analyze the results anyway. And the last thing doctors want to do, the last thing that they want to have happen is get homework from their patients.
Daniel, I tell this to people. if you listen back to the 2,500 shows, my biggest thing, people start to think, well, you hate doctors. And I always go, no. I've been through chemo twice. I've been through leukemia twice. I love doctors. Doctors have saved my life. But even within that realm, you have to advocate for yourself. You have to ask. Doctors are not God. They call it a practice for a reason. You have to ask questions. And I tell people all the time when I say, look, tell your doctor you want to know what your ApoA, ApoB, you want your small dense particle test, you want all this stuff. And if your doctor says we don't do that, go find a doctor that does, because your doctor doesn't know. That's like hiring a bicycle mechanic to work on a diesel engine. They don't know how to do it.
Exactly. No, no, no.
Right?
You're so right on all that, because that's why I have in the book, besides all of that, I give exactly what are the most important blood labs and scans. I cover that myself, as well as Dr. Ford. He has a chapter called Don't Guess, Test. And because a lot of the diseases we have spring from having some degree of a diabetic physiology. I mean, that was me. I was a raging type 2 diabetic, and I was on the lean, like we were saying, I was on the lean side, that kind of thing, because the first symptom or sign of having some degree of prediabetes or type 2 diabetes is being overweight. And that's like 90% of the population, almost 50% is obese. And then if you add on the overweight, that's, so most of the population in there. Here's a shocking statistic. And the point of that, let me just put a period to the end of that, is that there's this one test that we have to get that tells you exactly where you are on the diabetic spectrum. And the shocking statistic that I was just about to tell you is that there was a study in 2019 out of Johns Hopkins, and 2019 is like 10 minutes ago in the medical field, right? Because it takes so long for the information to get to the front lines of the doctors, let alone how long it takes to get into the curriculum of the schools, medical schools. And they found that 74% of doctors, now we're talking GPs, family physicians, internists, and cardiologists, 74% do not know how to properly diagnose and test for prediabetes or type 2 diabetes. It's like, what? Are you kidding me? No wonder it's a silent epidemic. What?
That's a simple test.
I know.
I know how to do it, and I'm not a doctor. I play one on TV. But I mean, how do doctors not know that information? I don't mean to go off on a tangent here, Daniel. But the only time I see commercials is when I watch pro football, because everything else I watch, just Amazon or whatever,
Right.
Apple. But during football season is when I get to watch dancing overweight people. Because they're dancing going, my A1C is 9, my A1C, oh, my A1C, and they're dancing. Overweight people dancing. Every commercial is. And then after the people dance and go, hey, I took Jardiance and I got my A1C down to 7. I got it down to 9, got it down to 7. I'm sitting there watching a commercial going, you're taking a drug that's keeping you perfectly sick, because unless you're below 5.6, you are still diabetic. Okay, that's like saying, hey, you know what? That house is on fire. We're gonna put the hoses on. Most of it is out. Some fires, let it go. Let it go. Why didn't you put the whole house? Why didn't you just douse the whole flame? Right?
It's amazing.
They're telling you, oh, you went from a 10 to a 9. Guess what? That's like saying you broke both legs. We put a cast on one. We're going to just let the other one ride, see what happens.
Oh, my God.
You still can't walk.
Yeah.
Right? You're still broken. And that's the part that kills me about it. And it's a simple test. I mean, would you agree that you can go to a drugstore and get the A1C test for $50? You can bring it home and test.
Well, sure. Yeah. Where everything goes off the rails. And you're so funny with that example. I know the one you're talking about, with these fat people dancing around to these like Broadway show type dance choreography. And It's hysterical. Yeah. I got my A1C down to 7, and that's still very deadly. And see, what happens is, where all that comes from is that most doctors, what they do is they test fasting blood glucose and A1C. And if you just do that, even the American Diabetes Association, who I don't trust as far as I could throw them, even they say, hey, if you just do only those two, you're going to miss 70, 80% of the patients. They don't do this test that I have, chapter 7. It's called The Most Important Health Test You've Never Had. And the reason for that is, and I'm sure you know by now, is because having a diabetic physiology is the source root cause of all the other things. Your heart attacks, your strokes, your cancers, your PCOS, your amputations from diabetic neuropathy, sleep apnea, cataracts, blindness, on and on. They all start with having some degree of a diabetic physiology. And even in your case, I'm sure you probably had this discussion with Dr. Seyfried, right?
Oh, Thomas has been on the show several
Yeah,
times.
no. Yeah, that's when I saw him. I thought when I first saw you with Dr. Ovadia, I thought, I wonder if he knows Dr. Seyfried. And then you brought him up, and I thought, wow, that's great. He knows about all that. But yeah, they don't do this test, and the test is the OGTT with insulin, oral glucose tolerance test with insulin, because I'm one of the many people who were normal with fasting blood glucose and normal A1C. But when I did the OGTT with insulin, oral glucose tolerance test with insulin, my score was well above 200, and that puts you in the diabetic, because that was the source root cause, me having a diabetic physiology, which I had no idea. But that was the root cause of my cardiovascular disease, my fatty liver disease, which I didn't know I had, and my osteoporosis. And let me tell you about the fatty liver disease. See, I don't drink. I had this thing called NAFLD, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which is like the largest liver disease, or the most afflicting in the whole planet. They're talking about like 1 out of 3 people or something. Anyway, so
Right.
the I didn't know. See, I was totally bought into the propaganda and the BS of, air quotes coming at you for those listening, heart healthy whole grains. I didn't know that these whole grains, when you eat them, they turn into sugar in the body. And I didn't know
Right.
any of that. And that destroys the arteries, which is a whole other thing that I could go into. But, so my diet was way off, and I had to fix all that, starting with the fixing and reversing the diabetic physiology. And I first found keto, and I found all these geniuses on YouTube and Google, and I went to Google University, YouTube University, all the books and studies and everything. I immersed myself there. And I found people like you're mentioning, Ivor Cummins, because he had the NAFLD like I did. And I thought, well, I got to
Yeah.
dive into that, find out what that is. And what that is, I had this elevated GGT, gamma-glutamyl transferase. And what that is, it's a liver enzyme. And most doctors, they just take, they'll test the ALT, ASP, ALT, and they don't do the GGT at all. And the reason why that's so important, and the medical field seems to be oblivious to it, is because here's the deal. Life insurance companies, they got to know who to reject and who to accept. It's just business to them. They're not so interested in medical science. That's one of the reasons why they're the most successful companies on the planet, been around since what, the 1600s or something.
Right.
They got to know, it's just bottom line to them. And they've discovered that their number one predictor of all cause mortality is having elevated GGT, gamma glutamyl transferase. I'm thinking, well, why don't the doctors know what the life insurance companies know to manage their own business and for the health of the other people? And then the more studies I looked at, cardiovascular disease is so closely related to non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Then I started connecting the dots and everything. And the studies were saying, if you have elevated GGT, the usual cause of death is a heart attack. I'm going, oh man. And so anyway, the GGT, that's a very important one. And I cover all that. That's in chapter 15, which I cover liver disease and kidney disease. I cover everything in the book. And by the way, the book is Unholy Trinity. The subtitle is How Carbs, Sugar, and Oils Make Us Fat, Sick, and Addicted, and How to Escape Their Grip. How carbs, sugar, and oils make us fat, sick, and addicted, and how to escape their grip. And what I mean by the carbs, of course, is that we're talking about the industrially processed and ultra processed grains, which they then turn into these powders, which they then turn into bread, pasta, cereal, crackers, biscuits, waffles, pancakes, chips, pretzels, rolls, pizza, tortillas, and on that way. And then you have your candy cake, ice cream, soda, fruit juice, and on that way. And then, oh my God, the oils. I had no idea about these oils that they were so poisonous that they weren't even in the human food supply till about 100 years ago. And they were
Well, let me break in
yeah.
there. We were still doing the podcast out of Anna Vocino's studio in North Hollywood. And we had this doctor who got in touch with me out of nowhere because the internet was still kind of new. Podcasts weren't really a thing yet. We were early money on podcasts. And this woman contacts us and she says, hey, I want to come in. I really believe in what you guys are talking about. I want to come in and talk to you guys. So she and her husband came in. She was a medical doctor. And she had just written a book, or she was getting ready to write a book. She had been working with a couple of the Lakers basketball players, and I thought that was a kind of cool angle, right? It's like, all right,
Dr. Kate.
She's working with the Kate, yeah, Kate Shanahan. Kate walks into my studio. We're talking 11 years ago. We're talking like 2011. So that's like 13 years ago, maybe 12. I don't know. And she starts talking about. She goes, yeah, sugars, grains, this inflammation. She goes, but seed oils. And I'm like, wait, what? Seed oil. It's all about seed oils. And I'm like, what? And what she started talking about made so much sense. And when the show was over with, I walked with Kate and her husband outside to say goodbye to him. We stood in Anna's driveway for about another hour and a half.
Wow.
Where she gave me this whole breakdown on that she was early money on the show. She came on 2 or 3 times way back when, before she's who she is today, right? But she really brought that to the forefront, like no one else did, right?
Amazing.
But yeah, so when you say, yeah, I had no idea. I used to tell my clients, take Udo's oil. You need to get your omega-6s. I was telling people to take a rancid oil and didn't know any better, just to get their omega-3s in and their omega-6s and the whole thing. And, once I started learning about this stuff, I was like, okay, I'm completely off of this. And I saw my inflammation that had gone down so much. Now, like you, I'm a super lean guy. At the time I was still doing ultra races and all this stuff. When I got off of all carbs and decided I can still do races on no carbs, which every expert told me wasn't possible, but I did. And then I took the seed oils out and saw another improvement far beyond what I thought I could see. I was like, wait a minute. Who knew?
Wow.
Who knew?
Wow. Yeah. No. Listen, I reached out to her because I have her whole section on the seed oils, and I got help from her insofar as she let me use this one graph that's out of her book. And because I wanted to, I write it's got a lot of technical information in there, but I explained it in a way I'm told that I'm very good explaining technical information in an easy way, because even what is his name? Einstein even said, if you can't explain something technical to a third grader, you don't understand it yourself. You got to be able to break it down. And so, I reached out to her. I reached out to Nina, your friend Nina Teicholz, because she had written this amazing book. Well, she's your friend, as well as Dr. Chris Kenobi, he's got this amazing new book called Ancestral Diet Revolution. And he's taken the deep dive into the seed oils and everything. So from all three of them, I was able to get graphs and charts and things to help the reader understand why these things are so damn dangerous, And so that was, and they all three wrote me some, wonderful endorsements for the book, and I'm flattered by all that. And but yeah, they have these ingredients that are so inflammatory. And first of all, like, as you say, they were invented according to Dr. Kenobi's research. They weren't even around until 1865, and they were considered a toxic waste from cottonseed farming. And
Yeah.
and then over time, they looked at it. Somebody looked at a bucket of it. It looked like lard that people used for cooking, and they said, "Hey, why don't we sell it to people? We can make some money that way." Especially with these two guys that came from Europe to Ohio, James Proctor and William Gamble, Procter and Gamble,
Yeah.
and they had this item called Crisco, which started flying
Right.
off the shelves in 1911. And then it's interesting, part of the book, besides it being a how-to of how I reversed these 4 comorbidities I had, it's also a kind of an expose on big food, big pharma, and big medicine. And again, like you said before, I love a lot of these doctors. I mean, let's face it, they're 24-hour heroes, right? Setting the bone, suturing up our wounds, removing bullets and steering wheels from our chests and all that. So I love all of them, believe me. But there's some failings in all of them, and the book is also what you would call a situation and data analysis of this. In 1930, the obesity rate was 1%. We're now approaching 50% in less than 100 years. In
Crazy.
1930, the chronic illness rate was 7%. It's now over 60%. Never before in human history has a population gotten so fat and so sick so quickly. You got to say, what the hell is happening? And then you pull the strings and you do the analysis. You find out it's these unholy trinity, the carbs, the sugar, and the oils that were never in the human diet. I mean, we've had grains and sugar, but never in the amounts and concentrations that we have now, right? I mean, sugar was first. It goes way back. I found a reference. They talked about it. It was invented in India, and it was referenced in this religious text called Atharva Veda. And that was like 900 to 1200 BC. And grains, they've been around for a while, but only since about 9 or 10,000 years ago, which is like a blink of the eye in the eons of time.
And by the way, I love when vegans, and I don't like, because vegans are just repeating what the vegans overlords are telling them to repeat.
Yeah.
It's like you see it in politics on the right and the left. People, on the right, they say their talking points, and then people on the left say that. It's like you realize that you're just doing talking points. I heard a vegan, well, the gladiators ate a lot of grains. And it's like, yeah, they ate grains in order to get fat. They didn't look like they look in the movie 300. They were not ripped up gladiators on steroids back during the Roman Empire. They were literally trying to put a layer of fat on their body so that when they got slashed with a sword or whatever, it wouldn't go into their organs. It would just slash the layer of fat. So, yeah, gladiators ate grains in order to get fat. Idiot.
Well,
that's what they were doing.
It's crazy. It's interesting you point that out. Yeah, I look at everything that I've come up with, whether I use it for myself or I read about it in the book. It's all ancestral. How did these
Right.
evolutionarily develop meat bodies? How did they eat? How did they behave? What was their? Because evolution is a straight line, right? And when you get
Yeah.
into the last, the second half of the 20th century, when the people coming up with vegetarian and vegan and all that, that's an aberration. And what I mean by that is aberration comes the word aberrate, which comes from the Latin aberrare, meaning to wander from. So
Right.
we have been eating, our diet consisted of what we could catch, kill, and eat, nose to tail, for so many millennia and eons. I mean, proven by anthropologists and bioarchaeologists, at least 2.6 to 4.5 million years. So, it's been around a long time that way. And when you say you're going to eat only plants, I mean, even in chapter 12, I have this chapter called Eat the Right Meat and Help the Planet. Because, we're getting hit with all this nonsense about, I don't want to, I got to watch what I say here because I don't want the overlords of the World Economic Forum and the WHO and YouTube to come
Listen,
down to your
you're
channel.
on this podcast. You're on this podcast. You're already fucked. So just
All right. Well, anyway, I asked the question. I say, why is it that the richest and most elite of the planet are pushing plant-based diets when throughout recorded history, those were reserved for slaves, prisoners, and foot soldiers? Like you're saying, the Vikings and the Romans, they marched on barley. The elites always had
yeah.
as much meat as they wanted. So why is it that they want us to eat bugs and crickets and so forth and not eat the meat? Well, they sent out a tweet from the WEF that said something like, well, meat will be available in the future, but it'll be a special treat. And I'm thinking, well, thanks, Klaus. What a nice slave master, right?
You
Anyway,
need to watch some of my documentaries because I bring Klaus up
really?
in several of them. The one I just put out a year and a half ago, Beyond Impossible,
Uh-huh.
is all about Beyond Meat and Impossible Burgers and so I came up with the title Beyond Impossible. And the reason the movie you really have to watch it tonight. You're going to
I
sit
will.
there and the truth is stranger than fiction. The reason it came about was, I was at the big food, health food thing that they do in California up in
Yeah,
Anaheim
yeah,
because
yeah.
I have a food company.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
And
remember that.
so we had a booth, and everything in that booth was reimagined. Chicken reimagined, fish reimagined,
Uh,
ice cream reimagined. It's like, but nothing was made of dairy or of animal products. So, and I started thinking about Beyond and Impossible and the whole thing. And I was like, wait a minute. They're saying number one that is better for the planet. So I did one night. I was bored and I was having a scotch, and I just did a quick Google. This is me having fun, Daniel. I pour a scotch and I Google shit, and I was like, okay, where are the raw materials coming from? And you can't just go to the top page of Google. You have to go deep, right? You have to know how to go deep on the web.
right.
And I have a buddy who taught me how to do that, Dan. So I did a deep dive, and it's like, wait a minute. All of the raw materials for this stuff comes out of China. So they have to somehow mine this stuff in China, these chemicals. They have to create the chemicals there. So that's causing some kind of carbon emission to create chemicals, right?
Right.
You're in that world, you know that.
Sure.
And then they're putting it together in the United States. Now, last time I checked, it takes some sort of Jet A or kerosene or diesel to now get this stuff from China to North American continent, right?
Sure.
To America.
Exactly.
So now we're putting more CO2 carbons into the air. And then when it gets here, that's when my eyes really opened to what they have to do to turn this into something that looks like meat. Now you're putting more CO2 carbons. So all along the way, all I was looking at was one shiny object, CO2 carbons. That's all I cared about, right? And all I saw was they're talking about saving the environment from cow farts, but they're putting CO2 carbons into the air at least 3 times, if not 4, before this even gets to the market, right? So then I went, okay, now is it healthy for humans? And I'm here to tell you, I would rather tell you to drink seed oils by the gallons every day. Literally take Crisco and scoop it right out of the can every day and eat that versus eating any of this fake Beyond Meat or Impossible Burgers. Because as I put it, you would get more nutrition from an Oreo, which is also vegan,
It's
by the way.
true. Yeah.
I compared it to an Oreo, and the Oreo was better. It was better for you. So you really need to go watch Beyond Impossible. You're not going to believe what you see there. You're going to really be freaked
Listen, I
out by it.
probably should have watched it before I even wrote that section of the book about seed oils, and because chapter 12, I go into the carbon, the CO2, and all that.
I'm a little pissed. You had Ovadia, you had Mark Hyman, you had all of my buddies over there do a forward. Did Uncle Vinny get a forward? No. Couldn't give Uncle Vinny a phone call or, hey, Vinny, can I get a forward for this? Like, nope. Not.
Hey, listen, I'm
You're
coming
not
back.
drunk. If I'm not doing a forward, I'm pissed.
I'm going to circle back and find you on the next edition or whatever. I got to grab you in there because, hey, another thing you got to remember is, and I'm sure Nina's probably told you this, if not Kate Shanahan, is that for a lot of these Impossible Burgers and fake meat, the second ingredient is like either canola oil or sunflower or some kind of seed oil, which has all these dangerous ingredients. It's like it has HNE, which is 4-hydroxynonenal. It's got TBHQ, which is like a 40-letter word that's biochemical. I won't even attempt to. It's got aldehydes. It's got all these cancer causing and neurodegenerative causing ingredients. It's just insane that we're putting these in, and Big Food puts it in just about everything. It's in all the crackers and it's just, that's that chapter 6 that I wrote on all that about the seed oils is still blowing my mind. It was just, I had so many WTF moments in writing the book, and I just wanted to really make sure that the reader got all those too.
Let me ask you, let's take this in a different direction for just a second, because my mind wanders. I wish I had 2 hours. We might have to do a part 2, Daniel. I wish I had 2 hours to talk to you. But the other day, my wife dispatched me over to a place called, you may have heard of it, Costco.
I've heard it. Yes.
So I'm now in a Costco, and I go over. I've been there before. We buy certain items from Costco. Usually, it's all paper items, such as my wife calls it, kitchen roll and toilet paper. So we have, so I went to the kitchen roll / toilet paper / Cascade area. I know where these areas are.
Right.
Way in the back of the store. But I'm noticing, as a 62-year-old man, I might be the only lean person in the store.
You're right.
And because I don't leave this Hubble very often, but now I'm in America. When I'm in that Costco, I'm in America. I'm seeing people of all social economic groups. These are not poor people. Rich people shop at. I live in Charlottesville, right?
Okay.
There are a lot of rich people here. Everyone's got some amount of weight to lose. Some, as you would say, obese. I would say well over 50% were morbidly obese.
Yeah. Wow.
And it was shocking and sad for me to watch.
Yeah.
And of course, Costco, I don't know if you ever shop at Costco, they have people along the way that work for Costco handing you samples of everything.
I know. Listen, I shopped there for a few things, some of the organic things. Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm looking at this and I'm going, okay, that's not the real problem. Once I got all my paper in my Cascade, I started walking. I said, I got time on my hands. I have to see. I started going up and down every aisle. And you can buy big cartons of what they call apple juice, big cartons of sugar, Coke, names of soft drinks I did not know existed.
Yeah.
One of my co-hosts told me about a product called Prime, that her son wants Prime, and they have to say, you're not getting the Prime. But I'm looking at all these shiny objects and all of this sugar, and I'm watching all of these mothers. All of them had weight to lose, and they all have youngins around the cart, right? Hanging onto the cart, grabbing stuff. And all of these carts are full of nothing but crackers, chips, sugar. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing these carts, and everyone goes, Vinny, not everybody can afford meat. Well, fuck, man. They're affording all this stuff. They're affording all these crackers, and they're affording all gallons, Daniel, gallons.
No.
Of high fructose corn syrup.
I know. That's why I'm right with you there. That's why I encourage in the book. I said, look, it is more expensive to buy grass-fed, pasture-raised eggs and beef and all like that. But when you eliminate all these snacks, you're going to save a lot. It makes it a lot more affordable. And then if you maybe just eat twice a day, which is more ancestral, because we were usually in some form of fasted state, and we were always in like some kind of ketotic state, and which our brains love and our hearts love. They use ketones over glucose any second of the day. And so, when you start eliminating that, you do a little intermittent fasting maybe, and which we can go into, of course, and then also eliminate all of these snacks. That's why one part of the how-to section is like, look, I know most people, they'll eat 3 meals a day plus they're eating 3 or 4 snacks. I said, look, the first step is you don't want to go full cold turkey, because you'll fail. You'll come back, they'll say, oh yeah, I tried that low carb keto intermittent fasting stuff, but it doesn't work. No, start with eliminating the snacks one at a time. And you eliminate 2, 3, and the best way to get from point A to point B, from lunch to dinner, is have, something that's very healthy fat for your lunch, whether it's eggs and cheese and butter, and throw in some chomps or whatever, some kind of healthy meat. And that way it'll get you there. It's very satiating. It'll get you from point A to point B much easier, and that way you won't need a snack. So you start doing that, you get rid of the snacks. And then if you want to get into the intermittent fasting, I have a whole chapter on that and how to do that. And I got another chapter. I got to get you the book. I'll send it to you. The following chapter.
I can't read it. By the way, folks, I didn't get to read it. As soon as I read it, it will be in the Vinnie book club. I'm getting ready to travel. I wanted to get Daniel Trevor on the show, but I will read the book. Then it'll be in the Vinnie book club. But I want to move forward a little bit, because you and I could get mired in the details of the day to day. And right now, when you're on a podcast like this, you're talking to the converted, right?
Yeah.
These are people that want to do better.
Right.
I'm trying to always figure out how to find that mother in Costco and have her know.
I know.
Which we will never get to. I want to skip ahead a little bit because of time.
Sure.
Like I said, folks, this guy is already coming back on. You said that in your book that most people, the book I haven't read, most people that have a stent or stents don't need stents. What did you mean by that? I only read the highlight of that.
That's a great question, because there were these big studies. And let me at least get into this. There was this big study, government-funded $100 million study. It was called the ischemia trial, and it involved 5,187 patients, and they divided them into two groups. One group got invasive procedures like CABG, CABG, that stands for coronary artery bypass graft, or PCI, that's percutaneous coronary intervention, which means a stent. So they got open heart surgery with a bypass or a stent, along with some medications, that kind of thing. And the group 2, they sent them in the direction of lifestyle changes. Lose 30 or 40 pounds, stop eating the junk, get back to the gym, and so on. And they followed them closely for 4 years. And at the end of the 4 years, see, what they wanted to do is they wanted to show that these invasive procedures were the shit. They were the thing that was really going to prevent any future heart attacks and strokes, right? And it was a failure. The ischemia trial failed to show. I mean, this rocked the cardiology community too. The ischemia trial failed to show that these invasive procedures were any better at preventing heart attacks than the natural way, the lifestyle changes. And then they followed up with the Orbita trial, the Courage trial, same failures. They failed to show that these invasive procedures were any good for prevention. And it's just amazing. And they are done now, to be clear, 15% of the time they're done for life-saving interventions. Somebody's having a heart attack, or there's some emergency is happening in the hospital, but that's only 15% of the time. The other 85% of the time is done for prevention, and we've proven. And so I asked the reader in the book, I said, do you think now that we've proven that they don't work, these invasive procedures, you think the procedures will at least come to a halt or slow down? The chart is going up like this. It's just they're more done than ever before. And because, let's face it, the board of directors of the hospital and the CEO of the cardiology clinic, there's no way that they're going to want to see all that revenue disappear, because careers and institutions would disappear. I mean, that would change everything. There goes the mountain retreat and the beach house and the kids in Ivy League and the Mercedes down to a Chevy. I mean, there's just so much of an enormous amount of revenue made from these mostly unneeded invasive procedures.
Okay. Now, most people, I'm not going to tell the whole story here. I've done it ad nauseum on this show, but when I first moved to Charlottesville, I had to get a new GP, go to the doctor. She checks out everything. And then I have the phone consult. I'm driving in my car, and she goes, "My God, at the time I was 58-year-old man, you're in perfect health, this and that, the whole thing, your blood numbers and everything. And she goes, but I'm concerned about your cholesterol.
I knew it.
And I was like,
I knew it.
and the part, I went, oh, really? And she goes, yeah. And by the way, my total cholesterol wasn't 200.
Really?
The number was not 200 total. And because I always like when it's a little higher, because I feel healthier when it's higher.
Sure.
Because the lower it is, the larger the incidence for cancer. And I've already had leukemia once, and at that point, and I was like, oh, geez, so it's 198. And she goes, yeah. She goes, now, and she's given me this. She goes, not to be concerned. Your ratios are perfect. Your HDL to LDLs are perfect, but it's a little high. And I'm going to suggest that we put you on and I'm quoting right now, Daniel, a light statin.
Oh, wow.
A light statin. Let us put you, look, we're going to shoot you with a gun, but it's not going to be a 44 mag. We're going to use a 38 special. Is that okay? That's basically, which gun would you like? I don't know. I'm going to die either way. You shoot me with either gun. So we're going to put you on a light statin. And I said, well, doc, I said, I didn't realize I was going to be taking a blood test when I came in to see you. I wasn't fasted. Were you aware of that? And she goes, well, no, I wasn't. I said, so you're suggesting I go on a life-changing medication and I wasn't fasted. I didn't know. I thought you guys were checking everything. I didn't know you were doing a cholesterol test that morning. No one tipped me off. So I wasn't fasted, number one. And she goes, oh, geez, well, we're going to get you back in, but you should still start the statin right away. And I said, when you were telling me all my other numbers just now, you told me my total triglycerides were below 40. They were like 38.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. I said, so wait, I have a triglyceride below 38. I'm below 40. And my total cholesterol, I said, what was my ApoA and my ApoB? What were my small dense particles? She goes, we don't test for that. I said, so would you like to put a cast on my right arm? And she goes, what? And I said, it's not broken, but I might break it. So why not cast it? And she said, and everyone knows this story. She famously says, I think you need to find a new doctor. I said, no, I was way ahead of you. I was just having fun. Right. And of course, I went to the next doctor, and of course, she did all the tests. And and by the way, Philip knows my numbers. Philip Avadia. I called Philip. I said, Philip, this woman. He was like, you have. I mean, your numbers are perfect. So yeah, she wanted to put a cast on an arm that wasn't broken. Right.
Well,
So I know one of your notes is, and this is, I told you that story so you can tip off on it. You say higher cholesterol is better. I agree with you. High cholesterol has never killed anyone. As a matter of fact, there's a higher incidence of people being healthier with a higher cholesterol. Go.
Absolutely. Well, listen, that's, I have all the data in the book. That's why, see, my book has more scientific citations and endnotes and all that than any other health and wellness book in existence. Most of them, if they have any, they'll have 200 or 300. Mine has 1,227. And the reason I bring that up is because I knew I had to have that backup. I wanted people to know that none of this is Daniel's opinion. All I'm saying is, look, just think of me as a friendly relay point of what the best of 21st century science has to offer for your health and wellness. And fix yourself. I did. You can too. Now, with regard to the cholesterol, it's like, see, even Dr. O, he will tell you, Dr. Ovadia, because I was on his and he, we discussed this. And it's just not taught in the medical school. They're taught about the low fat and all that bullshit from Ansel Keys from the 50s and 60s. And turns out that the data shows that people with high cholesterol live the longest. People with low cholesterol die much earlier and usually of some form of cancer. It's just backwards. Everything's backwards, right?
Yeah.
And I got this study from Dr. Robert Lustig, and that I'm about to tell you about. They had this big study. I can't remember. It involved 92,135 patients. That's a lot. And see, patients want to know, how much longer can I live if I take a statin? Is it, and the researchers wanted to know that too. Is it months, years, decades? How much longer if I take a statin every day for the rest of my life, which is what my doctor and certainly Big Pharma wants you to do,
Right.
what they found was those in the group taking statins for primary prevention. In other words, no heart attack yet. You're just taking it because your doctor says something about your goofy LDL nonsense or whatever he's got you on it for. They lived a big 3 days longer than those in the other group not taking a statin. And those in the group taking a statin for secondary prevention, in other words, they already had a heart attack, they lived a big 4 days longer than those in the other group not taking a statin. So I asked my readers in the book, you still want to put up with the nasty side effects of taking statins? Because for some people, they can be pretty damn nasty, with road rage and psychoses, and you drop at least 20 or 30 IQ points because they are designed to lower cholesterol, which the brain needs lots of. So
Right.
it's just backwards. It's just insane. And then you have to think, well, since the stated ideal global population of the World Economic Forum is 500,000, they've got a lot of weaning of the ant farm to do. So maybe they want us overfed and undernourished and overpsych drugged and this and that. I don't know. It makes you start thinking conspiratorially, and I don't want to go in that direction because
I stay away from that, even though look, it's easy to go down that rabbit hole. But when you look at it, you're a little older than me. But when I was a kid, I hate saying when I was a kid, but no one was fat, no one was on drugs. No one was on medication. And the average American now, I think, is up to five medications per day. The average American up to 5 a day. And I tell the story of, I grew up in a small town on the bayou in Louisiana.
Yeah, I know.
And I went back, I was like 50, I was like 51 or 52 at the time. And it was at the beginning of this podcast. And I was home and I saw a bunch of kids I hadn't seen for a while because there was like this get together, and I actually happened upon it. And the first thing was I didn't recognize most of them because of the morbid obesity.
Oh my God.
Some kids I grew up with and went to school with for 12 years because it's a small community. You go from K through 12 together. I didn't recognize a lot of them.
Well, Louisiana has a lot of that, in that area.
It's so sad and so scary. And so I'm there having a drink with these people and the whole thing. And as the night wears on a bit, one by one, they were like, "Hey, Vin, when people come up and state the obvious, they're getting ready to ask a different question. Hey, Vin, you seem to keep yourself in pretty good shape." Yeah. How many medications are you on? And I was like, what are you talking about? I didn't know about this at the time, 10 years ago. How many medications are, I was like, and I said, wait, are you suggesting I take steroids? No. Like, what do you take? Like, are you on the statin, or are you taking Ozempic or Wegovy, or are you taking, this, that, and the other thing? I was like, no, I'm not on anything. And that guy called it, "Hey, John, come over here. Come here, this. Tell him, Van, how many drugs are you on?" "I'm on nothing." "God, come on, Van. Come on, it's us. You can talk to us. How many drugs?" And I kept saying 0. And each person I talked to, they weren't just on 5. Some of them were on 7, 9,
wow,
11 different medications in their early 50s. Daniel, it scared me in ways I walked away and I did something. It's what made me famous on the internet. I did the famous Donaldsonville, that's my hometown, episode. And I talked about, I didn't mention any names, but I talked about all my friends and how they were all morbidly obese, and they all had a daiquiri, right? I was enjoying a scotch. So yes, I did have alcohol going into my body, but I didn't have crazy amounts of sugar. They were going from daiquiri to daiquiri, from beer to beer, just feeding that addiction of carbohydrates in the name of enjoying a drink, right?
Wow.
It was a scary thing. And that's what I saw in Costco. I see these people buying this stuff, right? And it scares the crap out of me. And you and I are, it's like we're trying to stop an outbreak, from happening, and they're driving the infected monkey to the airport.
I'm telling you, it's amazing. But wait a minute, I got to correct you on that. Don't you know that obesity is an Ozempic deficiency? And heart disease is a statin deficiency. Didn't you know that? Come on.
That's what they're trying to get us to believe at this point.
Oh my God. Well, who was that gal? I forget her name. She was on 60 Minutes, and she was this doctor pharmacy person. She works for and is funded by Novo Nordisk, who creates Ozempic. And she was on 60 Minutes saying that, oh yeah, well, no, this is not a personal thing. This is all genetic. If you're obese, it's just nothing to do. Don't feel guilty or anything like that. This is just genetic. Nothing you can do about it. You just have to get on this Ozempic and take it for the rest of your life. And I'm thinking, oh my God, it's the corruption is just so amazing and it's so blatant.
The side effects of GLP-1s, we don't even, I've often said, you know how we all look back at COVID nowadays and we go, oh my God, 6 feet away, that wasn't actually a thing. And oh my God, the mask didn't work. And, all these things we know about COVID now, right? We're going to look back at two things in about 5 years. I guarantee it. One is the electric car. And number two is this whole GLP-1 thing.
Oh my God.
We will be looking back at this going, what the F? Because everyone's going, oh no, an electric car. There's no, where do you think that energy is coming from? Coal has to be burnt somewhere for you to get that energy in your car, or diesel, or some kind of fossil fuel has to be burnt for you to get that in your car. And number two, those are the same assholes that are worried about blood diamonds and slavery somewhere else. Where do they think all of this stuff is coming from, right? Where do they think all of the lithium is coming from? It's coming from slave labor and blood labor. And once you're done with your Tesla or your Prius or wherever the hell you're driving, your Leaf, guess what? That battery has to go somewhere. And maybe we could put it on that island of plastic that's out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Maybe we could do that.
Wow.
Right? Yeah. Plastic, bad idea. GLP-1s is going to be in that same category. I guarantee that right now, folks. As they said on Saturday Night Live years ago, hear me now, think about me later. I will be right about this. No two ways about it. What say you, sir?
No, absolutely. I'm down with all that. That's why I think like I said, you'll enjoy my chapter 12, because I get into a lot of things that are, maybe a little political, World Economic Forum and all that, and how we've been misled with the whole scientific consensus about climate change and all that. And I don't want to, hurt anybody's feelings out there, but, it's just the scientific consensus that they say that there is. And, I'm reminded of, and I even write about this, that our brilliant astronomer and physicist, what's his name? Galileo.
Heard of him. Yeah.
In 1633, he was imprisoned for life because he went against the scientific consensus that the Earth was the center of the universe. He said, no, it's not the same. It revolves around the sun, and the sun's part of a system that's going around these other things. So I'm giving all these different examples. I'm saying, and so look, and even Earth is flat. It was a scientific consensus for a long time. So I give a lot of different examples. I say, look, next time you're hearing anything about scientific consensus, whether it's coming from government or media, just know that what you're about to hear will be as truthful as the COVID jab is safe and effective for everyone, and it totally stops transmission. We know what a total bunch of bullshit that turned out to be.
We know it now. Daniel, let's leave it on that.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you on the air, so you can't say no. Would you promise to come back in a few weeks when I'm done with my travel and we could do a part 2?
Absolutely. No doubt about it, as they say in the hood. And listen, let me send everybody to danieltrevor.com. That way, I have, what they can do is I have a 7-minute video there that gives my story, and you can see all my endorsements from all these wonderful people that were so kind to give all these. You can get on the mailing list, and what I offer is a free preview of the book, and what that is the first 48 pages, and that way you can check it out, see if that's for you. And I tell people, look, just read the introduction and then you'll know right away if you're interested in seeing more. So you can sign up, get that there. And, I got all these wonderful people that came on board, like your friend Nina Tice Schultz and Eric Berg and Dr. Ken Berry. And I even have Dr. Lou Ignaro, who won the Nobel Prize in Medicine for his discovery of nitric oxide. Wow. So I got all these amazing names and people and everything. Kate Shanahan, I got her there. Anyway, so they can get there, sign up get the first 48 pages of the book. And then if you think it's for you, you can, just click and go get it if you want. But anyway, listen, hey, thanks a lot for having me on, Vinny. It's really been a blast. I love talking about this stuff because my mission is like yours. I just want to alert people, whether it's in Costco, which I'm trying to get the book into there too, but I wanted to, here's the book. And again, it's called Unholy Trinity: How Carbs, Sugar, and Oils Make Us Fat, Sick, and Addicted, and How to Escape Their Grip. And again, Dr. Ford Brewer wrote chapter 22, which lists out what are the most important blood labs and scans that anybody can get online without needing a doctor's prescription. That way you can find out if you got something lurking, and it coincides with what you've got going on in your genetics that mom and dad had. Because, like for me, I have heart attacks and strokes in my family big time. And the only reason I pushed it off, was able to push it off, because I probably should have had it in my late 30s, is because I always made it to the gym. I was like you. I mean, my diet was all wrong, though. That was the only thing. And I think you'll like my chapter 9, which is all about exercise and what's the best exercise for people over 40. Anyway, a lot more we can talk about, brother. So, yeah, you got to give me your address so I can shoot you the book.
You don't have to do that. I'm getting is it an Audible?
Audible will be available, they're telling me, by next week. So it's
I will get it in Audible because
it'll be Audible and iTunes.
Yeah, I'm going to be traveling starting in 3 days. So as soon as it's out, don't send it. Don't waste a copy on me. I'm going to get the Audible. And folks, you guys get the Audible too. The book is called The Unholy Trinity. Once I've read it, it's going to be in a Vinnie book club. But I know it's going to be in there already because if my girlfriend Nina Tice Schultz is in that book, and my backup girlfriend Kate Shanahan is in the book, boom, I'm already in. And of course, Philip Ovadia gave it rave reviews to me. I can't wait to read it. Unholy Trinity. Daniel, stay on until after I play music and everything, because I have to wait for this to upload.
Sure.
And we can say goodbye to each other. Folks, you know what to do. Rate and review this podcast. It's how people keep finding us. Before you go shopping on Amazon, go to VinnieTortorich.com, click through the banner. It puts coal on the fire. It gets my train down the track. What else? That's all the plugging I'm going to do today. As you know, everything reminds me of a song. And Daniel brought up Galileo. And yes, I have a song where Galileo is mentioned. So on behalf of Daniel Trevor, my name is Vinnie Tortorich. Put life into living and do it with Queen.